let's kick things off with what we're calling our scout notes here. Kind of going back and looking at a couple players here, and these are going to be key figures as we march towards the postseason. The first of which is A.J. McCarron, who's now taking over the quarterback position for Andy Dalton, who broke his thumb. But Buck, before we get in deep, you can see our scouting notes up on the screen here. Before we even jump into that, I want everybody to just get a real refresher here of what your guy, because I'm calling him your guy, A.J. McCarron, had to say after the game in the little press conference, what he had to say about the situation he finds himself in.
I guess Tom Brady was in the same situation when he had the opportunity, so I got to make the most of it, do my job each week, know we have a unbelievable defense, and don't turn the ball over, and we have a chance to win. You
like that?
I love it.
You love that?
I love it. I love the confidence. I love him understanding exactly where he fits in the evaluation and where he fits in this puzzle with the Cincinnati Bengals. Understand, I was a huge A.J. McCarron fan coming out of Alabama. I thought he was undervalued in the draft. I thought he brought a lot of traits that winning teams would admire and really covet as a backup quarterback, a guy that eventually be a starter. And so when you talk about a guy that won 2 national titles at Alabama, played with a ton of premier talent on the outside, he managed the game, he drove the bus, and led them to the winner's circle. So for me, I think this is just an extension of what he did in college. I don't think the moment is too big. I saw him playing the championship game live against LSU. I think he will handle it the same way, and I think we're going to be surprised at what he delivers on the field.
All right, let's take a look here. This is my scouting notes here on A.J. McCarron. You'll notice the fancy graphic we got here, some doodling. Apparently I did some doodling.
I know, you must have got bored.
In the background, there's a little Lombardi trophy up on there. Look, you see the 6'3", 220 pounds, but to me, let's look on the right side of the column here. Accuracy, Buck. To me, a little more accurate down the field, which is unique. Normally, you guys, layups, intermediate, a little more accurate. He has a nice touch on the deep ball. You saw the long home run to A.J. Green, the touchdown the other day. Decision-making, he plays the game in an aggressive fashion. He's going to try and push the ball vertically down the field. You'll see some good, you'll see some bad there. Arm strength-wise, I put him slightly above average. I don't know his arm strength is all that different from Andy Dalton's. Maybe a slight improvement there. Mobility, very average. You give a big edge to Dalton in that regard. Now, the things that concern me a little bit, I know you're a big A.J. McCarron guy, but I'll give you some of my concerns. You talked about going to see him in the national championship game, right? Played well in that football game. I went and watched him play, I believe it was the following year in the Sugar Bowl against Oklahoma. And those offensive lines he played behind at Alabama, a lot of NFL players, a lot of first-round picks, a lot of clean pockets. Went back and looked at my notes. Coming into that game in the Sugar Bowl, I think you've been sacked 14 times in the previous 13 games. So not a lot of pressure. Oklahoma got to him 7 times in that bowl game. They hit him, they battered him, and he got some turnovers. He got 3 turnovers in that football game. Then you see the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they were able to heat him up a little bit. When he has to speed up his clock, the decision-making can be a little bit troublesome. So that, to me, is one of my concerns going forward.
Well, I mean, I think that's a concern with any quarterback. We even saw the great Tom Brady that he talked about heading into this performance against Houston. He had been banged up 32 times in the last 3 weeks, and we saw his completion percentage come down. Any quarterback in the National Football League that gets banged around a little bit is going to change. I think the same holds true for A.J. McCarron. What I like about A.J. McCarron in this situation, I love his play caller. I love what Hugh Jackson typically does. Because right now we're going to hold Andy Dalton up as a martyr, but going into the season, there were a lot of questions and concerns about Andy Dalton. And part of the reason he's been able to play well is because Hugh Jackson has not only challenged Andy Dalton, but he's put him in an offense that is allowing him to really play to his strengths. I believe now that Andy Dalton is given a full week with the ones, I think Hugh Jackson will put together a nice game plan that will help him out. He has a tough road to hoe. I know he's going to play the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of pressures on him. But because he's played in big games throughout his tenure at Alabama, I think he won't be intimidated by the moment. I think he actually will flourish in the moment, especially because it's on the road. It's a different environment on the road. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be okay.
So you don't think those 30,000 fans in San Francisco and Santa Clara with watching that Niners team really going to affect him, huh?
Nope, not at all.
Going out on a limb
I certainly don't. And especially after watching Johnny Manziel have success against the 49ers, I think A.J. McCarron will watch the tape and he'll be confident that he can take some shots and make some plays. But really, it's ultimately on the supporting cast to make sure he's comfortable. A.J. Green, I need him to step up. Marvin Jones, Tyler Eifert, those guys need to make plays. And then in the running game, if they run the ball and they're able to throw in manageable situations, I think he'll be successful.
Yeah, when you look at that picture of A.J., there, one other thing I noticed when I watched him on tape this morning, you see his hand off the ball there. patting the ball. Had a little bit of an issue with that. He gets a little bit hyper in the pocket when things kind of break down on him. So just want to see him calm, slow those feet down, sink those feet in the ground, drive off, and throw. Sometimes lower body mechanics can be a bit of an issue. But we've talked about it before. He's driving a nice car there in Cincinnati.
He is driving a nice car, and I think that's the big thing. If you're throwing A.J. McCarron into a losing situation where he doesn't have a lot of talent around him, like say if you put him in Cleveland, I would really worry because he doesn't have the level of creativity to necessarily make that offense better. But in Cincinnati, which is why I thought he was always best with a winning team, a team that already has some nice pieces around him, I think he's going to be fine. I don't think there'd be a noticeable drop-off between what Andy Dalton was doing in that offense and what A.J. McCarron's going to do.
All right, let's move on from A.J. McCarron to who really was the star of the week, and that was Khalil Mack. And I know, Bucky, this is one for you. This is your scouting
This is
report
absolutely
here.
one for me.
But you've taken some
I've taken
heat.
some incoming.
You've taken some heat, so I want to give you a chance to kind of defend yourself.
Well, one, I think I took some incoming unfairly because the conversation that we originally had stemmed about a Dante Fowler conversation when we were talking about the draft last year, and we brought a comparison up to Khalil Mack. But I wanted to bring out my scouting notes on Khalil Mack. One, when I watched him come out of college, I watched a bunch of games. I went to the Potato Bowl in Boise, Idaho,
San Diego State.
to see this guy play San Diego State at the University of Buffalo. And look, I thought he was a tremendous prospect. I thought he was a guy that was physical. He had impressive athletic traits. He displayed those at the combine and run support. At Buffalo, he was a guy that was disruptive, had a knack for playing with his hand in the ground or from an upright position, really did a great job of creating chaos. In college, he forced 16 fumbles. That is a lot of production that you look for. As a pass rusher, I thought he was a power player. I think his lower body explosion, his ability to forklift, bull rush people allowed him to create a lot of production. Understand, I come from a house, my dad is a D-line coach, so I really look at how they approach and how they get their production. He had a relentless motor, a nonstop guy. So when you check off all the boxes, he checked off all the boxes as a player in terms of being kind of like a standard player. The one thing that I dinged him for, I didn't see a big arsenal or a vast array of moves as a pass rusher. I think he's a guy that is still more of a power-based player. He likes to take people right down the middle, drive through them. He has shown a spin move, but he doesn't necessarily have like that snap count anticipation and first step quickness that some of the premier guys like Von Miller, some of the guys that have gone into Hall of Fame, the Derek Thomases, the Bruce Smiths have had. But he is growing into a very, very dominant player. And the one point that Raider fans take umbrage with me is because I called him a complimentary pass rusher, meaning that I saw him coming out of college, I saw him more as a guy that if he worked in tandem with a dominant player, he would be able to rack up sacks on the other side of the line. He has grown to be more than that, but I will point out, most of his sacks in the last 3 weeks, he has 11 in the last 6 games, 9 in the last 3 weeks. They're doing a great job of placing him opposite right tackles, and he is wearing out inferior tackles with his combination of strength, power, and explosiveness.
Yeah, now that's one thing I want to hit on too is I don't know if you had a premier pass rusher why you would ever rush him from the right side against left tackles. Why even do it? And we were talking previously about this. I think we even forgot to say Cam Wake.
You know what? And that's the other thing too, because
Michael
of comparison.
Strahan,
Yeah.
all these guys, a lot of guys. Why not put him over there?
And I think that's the comparison. When coming out of college, I compared him to Ahmad Brooks, partially because we didn't know how he was going to play. He was a stand-up player, a power player. Ahmad Brooks is a 2-time Pro Bowler. I saw skills and traits that were very similar to Khalil Mack. But the guy that you bring up may be a more apt comparison in Cam Wake. Cam Wake has lived as a left defensive end, dominating right tackles. Khalil Mack may be destined to be that kind of player, particularly when they get Alden Smith back. And also, the emergence of Mario Edwards as a legitimate factor in the middle has really helped him feast off those one-on-one matchups as well.
That's one thing. When you see a guy have 5 sacks, there's usually, you got to have some kind of a compliment in there. And when I watch that tape, Mario Edwards, to me, his ability to be able to close the escape hatch, you know, when you look at him getting that inside push, there's nowhere to go if Khalil wins outside. Usually you get an outside rush, you got some ability to climb up and try and get away from him. He closed that down with what he did
Absolutely,
inside.
because when you think about Khalil coming off the edge, Khalil Mack's coming off the edge, quarterbacks are taught to climb up in the pocket. But now that you have Mario Edwards in your face, you can't climb. So you really have nowhere to go. It really works well. That Raiders defense is really coming on. Next year would be the big year because if they get Alden Smith back with Mario Edwards playing and Khalil Mack doing his thing, that front four is good. Still need to address some pieces in the back end.
Yeah, but Khalil Mack, that's your scouting notes there, Buck. And this is going to be something we're going to be able to do going in the future, too, especially as we lead up to the draft. We'll take this same formula and put it to these college prospects. But, Buck, man, the guy's leading the National Football League in sacks. He's doing something right.
No, he is absolutely getting after it. Right, just past J.J. Watt in terms of sacks, 14 sacks. 11 in the last 6 games. That's an incredible stretch of production. That's exactly what you expect from a top 5 player.
Yeah, big time young talent there for the Oakland Raiders.